Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and of course, humanoids of all descriptions. Welcome to the channel. I'm Cap, and this is my place. This video, like all my videos, is meant for all viewers. However, I'm really intending it to be this one to be watched jointly by parents and their teen drivers. Some background. Columbus Day weekend 2014 was, in fact, a great weekend. A close friend of 20 years and I attended the fall Knob Creek machine gun shoot. Just a few weeks later, after being friends for 20 years and having been best man at both his weddings, I found myself in a funeral home, helplessly watching his wife come to terms with being a widow and his elderly parents come to terms with losing their only child. He had stubbornly insisted on driving home into the teeth of a large winter storm instead of sleeping on my couch. He put the car in the ditch, and about 36 hours later, the state police found his remains in the car under nearly 20 feet of snow. So let's talk about preparing the inside of your vehicle for winter. All right, everybody. So we're going to start here on the couch with the stuff that I'm going to add to my vehicle's interior specifically for wintertime. And the first thing that I start with is a snow shovel. I may not be the one who gets stuck. And if all we have to do to get somebody else unstuck or out of their vehicle and into mine that's warm is use a snow shovel, hey, winning. Second thing I've got here, I've got what I like to sarcastically refer to as a tactical man purse. It's a Maxpedition bag, plenty of pockets, plenty of zippers, and it's well constructed. So I have right here, for starters, a wool watch cap. Wool insulates very nicely, not only when it's dry, but continues to insulate well even when it's wet. So a wool watch cap, we do lose the majority of the heat that we lose through our heads. Gloves, and they're grippy gloves. Keep your hands warm. Frostbite starts on the extremities, so we have gloves. So I don't have to necessarily have to burn up flashlight batteries. I have 3 fresh chem lights. Will chem lights always work when it's really cold out? Well, not necessarily. They may say they do. I don't know. I've never ended up in a position where I had to test that, but I've got chem lights. I've got a 4-pack of batteries for my various flashlights. They all take the 123 battery. They're very powerful, and I have a low setting available on my flashlights, so if I need light, I can have it, but I don't necessarily need 100 or more lumens in the interior of a vehicle. And of course, the flashlight is in a pocket on my clothing, so it's next to my body, and the flashlight itself is warm. I have a balaclava. It's an Under Armour cold gear balaclava. Again, frostbite, face, and the extremities, and help me keep from losing heat through my head. I have a small extra first aid kit, and this is more of a boo-boo kit than anything else. I've got a little bit more of this stuff in an exterior pocket, but there's band-aids and a little bit of medical tape. 2 pair of wool socks. Why 2 pair? Well, if you're stuck for any period of time, you know how wet your feet can get inside your boots, even if you're not going outdoors. You wear that same pair of socks for more than, call it 16 hours, you're going to start feeling, your feet are going to start feeling wet, because they are. That's immersion foot. Immersion foot used to be called trench foot. It's a very dangerous condition. Your skin, when it swells because it's wet, can split. The epidermis and even the dermal layer can be caused to slough off with even a little bit of activity. And even if your feet don't freeze because they're wet, you can still end up with some serious injuries from that. So I have dry socks. And hey, if I pluck you out of your vehicle and your feet are wet, put some dry socks on your wet, nasty feet. It'll help your feet dry out. I have a bag full of nitrile gloves down here in the front. Why? Well, I've got first aid stuff. Maybe you have a laceration. I don't know what you've got. I'm going to give myself a laceration. I could put those on. They're very thick nitrile gloves. They're 10 mil. The ones that I buy are pretty cut resistant. Again, small channel, no channel sponsorship, but I use gloves.com. High quality nitrile gloves. We're going to see right here, hand and foot warmers. These are very important. Put a couple of hand warmers in your armpits or tuck them up in your crotch to warm blood coming from and going to your extremities. Again, help prevent your body from shutting down due to frostbite. These have an expiration date. You have to check them. This year is the year I need to replace these. So when I do this week's grocery shopping, I already know where that display is. I will be purchasing hand and toe warmers. Over here, I have an old military mummy type sleeping bag, also called a fart sack. This is a medium weight bag. These old medium weight bags were comfort rated, not survival rated, but comfort rated down to about 40 degrees and survival rated down to about 20. And that bag goes in a waterproof bag. Now, one of the things you have to think about is how are you going to dress while you're driving? Even before losing my friend to that winter storm, I was always of the mind that I'm going to dress in my vehicle for the outdoor conditions, not how warm and comfortable I can make the interior of the vehicle. I can always turn down the heat in the interior of my vehicle, or I can keep the heat on my feet and the windshield. I can also shed layers when I get where I'm going, so that's not a big deal. What you don't see here is food and water. Even items like MREs aren't really supposed to be stored long term. Places that get hot, they're supposed to be stored and then used. So I will be adding food, just some granola or something like that, something with some carbs and some sugar. The sugar to make you thirsty. Water. A lot of people think that they don't need to drink a lot of water during the wintertime because, hey, I'm not sweating, I'm not losing water. Well, that's incorrect. The human body is in a constant state of losing water. Just because you don't feel yourself perspiring because it's cold and the atmosphere is dry doesn't mean it's not taking place. You may be losing more water even when you're inactive during the winter because it's so cold and so dry, especially through your lungs, your mouth, and your sinus cavities. So we're going to have a half a dozen or maybe 10 bottles of water in the truck. I've never had a bottle of water freeze and burst in my truck during the winter, no matter how cold it got. And there's been a couple of winters where the temperature was down, sub-freezing, down to like 9 degrees Fahrenheit for a period of a couple of days. And again, never had a water bottle freeze or burst. So let me go ahead and shut the camera off and clear this away. And then we'll bring out stuff that I tend to keep in the truck year-round. All right, everybody. This is some more stuff. Most of this, with the exception of the snow brush, and scraper, which is extendable so that I can stay dry, stays in the truck year-round. Let's get this off to the side. All right. Now, because I'm not a fan of the idea of burning up the battery in my truck if I'm stuck in very cold weather, so that I can make phone calls asking for help or sending text messages asking for help, I have 2 DeWalt external batteries here. And with those batteries, I have a cord. I have work gloves. These are, when I say work gloves, I don't mean a pair of cloth gloves covered with flowers that you get at the gardening center. I mean real leather work gloves that are going to properly protect your hands. I understand that if you have very small hands, that may be hard to find. However, these are engineered double palm work gloves that I got at Clothing Sales at Fort Benning when I was getting out of the Army. And that was in 1992. As you can see, maybe you can see, I've sewn up the seams several times. And right here on the thumb, I don't know if you could see that, I've had to sew up the thumb where this glove saved me from letting an angle grinder slip. I don't have a visible scar, I didn't lose my thumb, didn't even need stitches. Glasses. I do wear glasses. I know I don't wear them in most of these videos. I don't like the reflection that I see from the ring light. I just find it distracting. But I've got an old pair of birth control goggles from the Army. They're still good enough so that I can see if I somehow break my glasses, or so I could take my regular glasses off and wear these outside and maybe get them messed up. Winning. Tools. Multi-tools are not as good as real pliers, real screwdrivers, etc. But a full-size proper multi-tool, or even a miniature one, is in every way possible better than a cold, wet fingertip that's got ice crystals on it and maybe getting frostbite. So I keep a couple of those in the center console of my truck along with those glasses. I have a 10,000 pound tow strap, a hook on each end. I have an 18-inch Gerber camp axe. It's well balanced, nice and solid, and they don't require any sharpening. They are sharp as hell as they come from Gerber. And finally, I have a Combat Lifesaver bag. The only thing that's not in this bag that an Army or Marine Corps Combat Lifesaver, if the Marine Corps has that course, would have is the materials to start an IV. I'm no longer in the Army, I'm no longer a Combat Lifesaver, so I'm no longer certified to start an IV. But I have plenty of gauze, I have Band-Aids, plenty of other stuff in here to do first aid with. I purchased this after I was on a range professionally for firearms qualification. A co-worker, a brother officer, did a negligent discharge through the heel of his right foot. I turned to the captain, who was our alleged training coordinator, and said, "Hey, so-and-so is bleeding, we could use the first aid kit." And he said, "We don't have the first aid kit." I looked at him and he was incredulous and said, "Why didn't you bring it?" And he said, "Well, we never bought one. We didn't think it would be necessary." So I purchased. That way I know, if I'm on the range, we don't have to go ahead and scrounge through vehicles looking for stuff to treat an injury with. Do I anticipate ever treating another gunshot wound? No. I didn't anticipate treating that one. But what I do anticipate at some point in the remaining 30 or 40 years that I may be driving is showing up being the first at the scene of a car wreck, or a pedestrian or bicyclist who's been struck by a vehicle. So I suggest you have something along these lines with pressure dressings, etc. You may be saying, "Well, Cap, I'm not a first responder." If you're the first one there, guess what? You are the first responder, whether you like it or not. I've got this kit over here. It's got harnesses in it for trailering. It's got reflective striping on it, obviously, instead of having to set out a triangle. In here we also have jumper cables. And to assist in using a 10,000-pound tow strap, because I drive a half-ton pickup truck, I have a clevis that goes into my hitch receiver. There's a flashlight in here. There's some other stuff. I think this is an alleged space blanket. Guys, gals, don't rely on a space blanket. They may be better than nothing, but not by a hell of a lot. Okay, everybody. I've shown you the stuff that I keep in my vehicle. No list is going to really be comprehensive. And the stuff you keep in your vehicle will change over time. Things to remember: food and bottles of water have to be rotated. Medical supplies that you may keep in your vehicle also may have an expiration date on them. You have to check them. And finally, one of the things that I've always done, even before this incident where my friend passed away, and I think I may have said this in one of the earlier segments, I dress for the conditions outside my vehicle. I can turn the heat down in the vehicle. I can isolate the heat to the floorboard or the windshield. And when I arrive where I'm going, I can always shed layers. Again, if you've got stuff with you and you never need it, well, that's great. And if people think you're paranoid, well, who cares what they think? Seriously, who cares what they think? On the other hand, if you need something, when you have an emergency and you're not prepared to deal with it, and help can't arrive, or it happens to someone you know and you have to listen to them beg for help because they weren't prepared, well, that's not great. So it's better to have and not need. Remember, everything goes in the interior, in the passenger compartment of your vehicle. If you're stuck in the passenger compartment and you can't get to what's in your trunk, it's not very useful. So again, if you're a parent, watch this with your teen driver, and let's all go ahead and make it through whatever the winter throws at us this year. We'll see you next week, sometime every Wednesday for a new video. Bye-bye.